what is our commentary for orcs? What's all so orcs?
Orcs are evil. They should be exterminated on sight.
The problem is, I
It
guess we need to
depends
figure out
on the setting.
what fiction we're going with first, right? That's going to be the problem. Is I think the only one that we're all going to be very familiar with is going to be Lord of the Rings, because
Yeah.
I think all of us are
And
different.
the
on other
allegory
things.
they're making with Lord of the Rings is
Well, yeah.
hilariously inaccurate.
That's the conversation they're
Especially
bringing
for
up,
Lord of the Rings.
which I got sent all kinds of articles, but most human beings don't know about this, which is orcs are bad because they seem to be sentient, also they're evil as a whole, and they're always like wiped out by the good guys, meaning, allegorically, you could say there are species in the world, or races, that are evil from the get-go, and you shouldn't be portraying that because that's wrong. The thing for me is that I'm not sure I quite understand exactly...
Oh,
my
God.
goodness gracious, Metal.
Ah,
You started talking about races and the Germans started to block his communications.
what?
You sound like bum...
Merkel's in your microphone. He says stop talking about orcs.
I didn't even say anything.
Mel, you sound like poopy. I hope he's okay.
Me too.
I guess the infection spread from Rags to Mel, because who's next, I suppose?
I'm free!
Yeah. All I was going to say is that Lord of the Rings doesn't go too in depth with what I'm not including the books right now, of course. Exactly what they are. They are creatures that seem to be under the will of Sauron, which is how I kind of interpreted it. That they have their own sort of specific individual sort of characteristics, as in some are more aggressive, some are less, some are more intelligent, some are less, some are more invested in certain things than others. The Uruk-hai that Saruman makes, they're like 100% on Saruman's team, while the orcs seem to just be like, we're evil, but we're willing to eat the hobbits. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna be evil my way.
Yeah, but it always came across to me, like, I guess I took this for granted a little bit. I thought that Sauron had, like, a general spell over them, like a sort of, they are essentially going to be doing his bidding no matter what, because they're a lower life form. They're just, like, something that, or
Lower life form.
I mean, I didn't, you know. I suppose I should define what lower means. I guess just lower functionality, I don't even know. Like trolls,
shorter?
though. Trolls are supposed to be like wild and whatever, but like Sauron's influence can make them join his army, sort of thing. That's what I got from the movies. The Uruk-hai is supposed to be like, are orcs corrupted elves with more lore to back them up?
I think so.
Something like that. And then when you get into
Weren't they elves that lived in like a unforthright or like
naughty
sinful
things.
way, and their punishment or something is like they get resurrected as these like hobbit fodder.
So they're like what the Mormons used to think black people were?
I don't know. If this is the thing, without all these specifics, you can't really make a judgment on whether or not it makes sense, and that it could exist this way. The thing that I think is trying to get pointed out is that they are sentient life that are always going to choose to do evil things, in which case they're not really that sentient at that point. If they're more like drones, they're always going to do bad stuff. But they always know what the bad stuff is and do it anyway, or do they not? Like, this is the problem. I don't really know enough about orcs to be able to even draw these allegories out, because I don't really know what they are as creatures in the movie, but they're the bad guys. And I would actually argue that there's not really many circumstances in Lord of the Rings where the bad guys like capture and execute them because they're evil, quote unquote. It's more so they're attacking them and they defend themselves from them. Which in that case, it doesn't really matter if they're good or bad. Because you're gonna fight back. So.
Hi, Metal.
You don't sound so floopy now.
I don't know what happened. Making a little muffin, everyone got upset. I don't know what happened.
Tolkien orcs were bred from elves by Morgoth. They were literally made as a foil to Valar, elves, and men. They are basically anti-humanity.
The anti-human equation.
Oh no.
Yeah, the thing about that is just there's a curiosity in terms of mechanics, how they work, because there's a lot of entities, I think, across fiction that are, like Daleks is kind of where I'd probably go first. They're like creatures that are genetically modified to desire purity, and all that's pure is a Dalek, so they kill everything that isn't Daleks. And if someone was like, that's evil, so they're all evil. And it's like, sure, but like they're They were made that way. And in a
Yeah.
fiction where you can create species like that, is this a
Right.
problem? I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, you can pity something for being evil again, and it doesn't have a choice in the matter, but, you know, it is what it is.
One of the things I think is key with this is that in fiction, it's okay to have a character or group of characters be a one-dimensional representation of just a simple idea or thing. In this case, like evil. Like sometimes it's in fiction, it's okay to have the good guys and the bad guys very clear cut, so you can more effectively make a central point clear. You know, whatever the theme is of your story. It depends what you're trying to do, right? Like, what kind of game are you making? What kind of story are you telling? What's the theme of it? And my fans kind of make fun of me sometimes because whenever I say theme, it's like they make fun of me like it's some kind of meme word. It's like
it is
it's
a meme
serious
word.
thing. Okay, it actually it's important.
Thing.
Themes are like orcs.
Ladies and jelly beans. It's an important thing.
I want to.
Anyways,
jump off
go ahead.
quick.
Sorry.
No worries. It's in that I think any kind of racial allegory in Lord of the Rings specifically is immediately defeated because the stronger reading and the one that's more supported is that they're an allegory regarding industrialization and, you know, the future. Because the orcs, they're very industrialized, mechanized. We get all kinds of scenes of, you know, them burning forests in huge pits, building, you know, weapon after weapon, that kind of thing. So they're much less a representation in any racial sense, and they're more a representation in, you know, that kind of sense of the loss of a social sense of loss of the romantic ideal of, you know, the past.
I thought you were going down a different route. I thought you were going to talk about how the much stronger reading of the Lord of the Rings is that we need to cooperate with other races.
Well,
Generally our bigotry against other races is shown to be a bad thing in the books.
Yeah. And this is where the problem of allegory comes in, because someone will go see dwarves and men and elves, wizards and hobbits are all representative of, you know, white, black, Asian, everything you can come up with coming together to defeat an evil. But then someone else goes, well, then why not include the orcs? You saying black people can't be a part of uniting?
And then at that point, you're like, that's a bit Freudian, buddy.
Well, yeah, this is the thing. You're like, why did we decide that orcs are black people? Holy fuck! Like, why can't orcs represent the struggles in life? Like, why do they have to be black people? What the hell?
It's the progressive mask once again slipping, where they have to see race in everything, and they have this victimization complex, and they have to find some way to do it. That's how they think.
It's the correct me if I'm using it incorrectly, but isn't this like the horseshoe thing, where by going one direction so far, you ended up back where you were trying to fight?
Kind of, yeah, close to it.
Yeah, it's the idea that the further you go to the extreme, you end up being basically the same as your enemies.
There's that video, right, where it's like the racist and the progressive are the same person or whatever. they keep agreeing with each other's ideas. It's, like black people need to be taken away from like society because, you know, without specifying reason. And someone's like, yeah, there should be places where only black people are allowed to go, and they're like, oh my god, that's a great idea. Like,
I know, we're gonna give them their own bathrooms and their own drinking fountains. It'll be great.
Yeah, so I think that's we pretty much addressed probably the core of the video, but now we will listen to them break it down so that we will stop misunderstanding, because this is going to be the video to really get it across. Unless was there anything else anyone wanted to say?
Oh yeah, they have.
I think so.
They have a word for it. Like, I remember this thread on Twitter where she used black coded. Orcs are black coded. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean?
What does that mean?
Like, yeah, I mean,
that one is newish. Code, like, not newish in terms of a word that can get used to mean so, but it's newer in like literary analysis for like modern sort of dare I say colloquial video essay discussions. Funnily enough, the reason this has come up before is I've heard EFAP has been coded as like my videos and what we do on EFAP is very like anti-black and women coded.
What?
Like that's what it was described as. And
Fringy, what do you have?
How could you, Mahler?
Well, it's the thing. I was just like, oh,
I trusted you.
But like, fuck that word, because all it means is I think that's what they're doing, and if I say it this way, it sounds a lot more smart.
So that
want to
sounds
associate
kinda,
thing.
fucking hell. the fuck? Like,
Well, like,
I don't understand the world that we live in anymore.
It's as far as I could, like, because it's relatively new to me as well. But like, as far as I knew, allegory was still the fine word to use. We didn't need coded. Coded is like, you just have a bunch of
a word for them.
You have a bunch of shapes, and you know one of them is slightly misshapen, and then the rest of the shapes, like, it's cool. You can still hang out with a shape that is different from us, and we're like, oh, I understand how this is coded. And then someone else will be like, well, no,
coding
it's
is
an
like you're
allegory.
trying to hide it, right? Like an allegory is like you're suggesting, you're encouraging people to see the parallel between the story you're telling and some other thing. Like a coded thing is like you're trying to slip it under the radar.
That might
Am I
be,
getting that right?
That might be the connotation. I thought that it was pretty much just something could be coded with purpose to give a particular message across that you think is a positive one. But it might be that coded is the spooky allegory.
Right.
You're like, you know, black people are bad. Anyway, yeah, Lord of the Rings is really cool because the orcs get killed, and I really like that. Excuse me? The dwarves are Welsh.
Oh, so it's basically that South Park episode where when you go to musicals and they tell you to give your husband a blowjob. So, basically.
You should never have made that Black Panther video. I had no idea what was going to happen when I made it. I thought I was just annoyed the film wasn't good. I didn't realize that's what would happen, but yeah. Alright then, let us continue.
Now, not to worry. This episode isn't going to be just another member of the chorus talking about how if all orcs in a game are blindly evil, that it's racist. Instead, we want to discuss how that particular choice is simply bad game design.
No, you sneaky little fuckers.
Go on then.
Yeah, so when they say we're not gonna just be part of the chorus on that, it's not a chorus. It's a very select few amount of fucking crazy, insane, racist people on the left who say this. But they'll say that, but they'll also use this video that's built upon that proposition as essentially true. It assumes that it's true, and it builds everything that it is on that idea. So it's like, we're not saying it, but it kind of has to be the way things are for this video to even begin to make any level of sense.
Yeah, they're just cheating
moving
anyway.
on. Just gonna keep on moving.
I didn't say what you did was bad. I said what you were doing isn't good. Or neutral. It's the other one.
That's probably copyright.
Thanks so much to NordVPN for sponsoring today's episode.
Good job,
to take control of your...
Another banger. Hope you get your money's worth out of this one.
Dude, they sponsor
They're
like
really
everything.
cranking out a lot of videos, aren't they?
They sponsor
Wow,
everything.
NordVPN.
Who cares? NordVPN.
Hey guys, I want to tell you about NordVPN. This is really good.
Yeah.
Your internet
Maybe these
security.
guys think
Get a
that,
huge
yeah,
discount on a 2-year plan and get 1 month free. Use code extra
Ooh,
credits at
free.
nordvpn.com/extra credits.
Sweet.
Real quick update.
Must be like they must have sponsored so many channels. You can probably just type a random word in the fucking URL and you just get a discount.
Up, please
Yeah,
welcome
Orcs are
James
black
Mendez
people's
Hodes, who
promo
guest
code.
wrote.
James Mendez Hodes.
James
guessed right,
James
this
Mendez
episode.
Hodes. So
Apparently that guy co-wrote this this video, and I looked him up, and he wrote like a
He was the
huge
writer.
essay about something.
About this?
It was pretty
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah, so James Mendez Hodes, he has his own blog and he has his own YouTube channel. And I'd like us to watch one of it. Just listen to one of his videos very quick. It's only a minute and a half, but it is so very insanely informative, and it will enlighten everyone going forward with this orc video. He makes a lot of videos about orcs and fantasy, and he does the whole Tolkien was racist thing. And all of this stuff is bad thing. He's just the most unfun, miserable person you could imagine, who has this obsession with race in fictional settings, almost specifically orcs. So I'm gonna post this, and I guess anyone could pop this in the watch together.
Oh wait, are we doing that now or after this one?
Well, we can just listen to it. It's just 1 minute and 23 seconds.
So we're
So I
only
fe-
45 seconds in, just for reference for this one.
Yeah, we're 45
If we
seconds
wanna
in.
switch over.
So I think this is an interesting thing for us to watch really quick.
Seeing my friends and acquaintances struggle.
So he wrote, or at least co-wrote, the video we're going to watch.
This is
Yeah.
he's the writer of the video. He's the guest writer, yeah.
Excellent. All right, let's get some context before we jump right in.
Seeing my friends and acquaintances struggle to explain why we feel so strongly about orcs to people who vehemently disagree, I thought I'd try rephrasing my Orcticle's most important point in language which both sides, since evidently now there are sides, could accept. If you feel the way I do, and you can't get through to someone, perhaps these words will help you. This, then, is the most important thing I can say about orcs.
Okay.
If we play a game, and how you or the game talk about orcs reminds me how racists talk about me...
What?
Well,
All right, I should let it just carry on.
Memories of racism
Yeah.
distract me, and I cannot enjoy the game. If you like, call it a me problem, not a you problem. If you want that kind of game, cool, I just won't join you. You'll be better off without me, I'll be better off without you, not calling you racist or evil, just stating a preference. But it's better we discuss this now rather than midway through the game, yeah? Never mind Tolkien history or theory, that's the most important point. Of course, I have other thoughts, explained in the articles, about depicting orcs in a way which tells people who fight racism daily you care more about our experience than consistency or balance. But if your interlocutor can't or won't respect a creative preference based on an inalienable experience of oppression, block them. They haven't reached a level of empathy we would expect from most children, and that you're not getting paid enough to teach.
Oh my god.
So children's understanding of empathy is much lesser and less respectable than an adult humans. Just FYI.
This is
Children have empathy.
this tells you everything you need to know about this person and how they view this entire topic and how they view essentially their existence.
I'm trying to figure out what I could say about orcs that would remind someone about the racist things that they get.
Well, this is the
struggling here,
byproduct.
so
This is what happens when you tell people their race is who they are. Their race is their identity. It's their most. It is the manifestation of them as a person. That's their race. When you have this focus on race constantly, all the time, it creates people like James Hodes who can't not ever see it. Even in a totally fictional world and fictional universe, it has to all come back to me in my either real or imagined racial oppression. And what this means is that as we got towards the end of this little statement here, it allows him to make confidently incredibly strong moral judgments on your character because in your fictional setting, you have orcs in a particular way. So that is a character judgment he can make on you as a person.
Yeah, and he clearly did. He
because
just said,
you want your world to be that way.
He was like, you don't have the empathy of a child. It's like, thanks. First of all,
you have to put.
Can I say that orcs aren't real and what he's saying is nice psychotic? It's good.
Well, I'm curious how far this stretches, because if we agreed with him and we were like, yeah, you know what, no more orcs, and then we carry on playing different IPs and we're like, oh no, the flood. I guess they gotta go.
Yeah.
They're kind of evil, right? And then I wonder if he would be like, yeah, true, they gotta go. It's like, cool, they're out. Oh no, Predator, is he evil? He's just hunting people for sport. That's pretty evil. And he's like, yeah, he's gotta go. It's like, right, he's gone.
I can't play. Oh my god.
Right, yeah. Like, not every game is fucking Mass Effect or, like, Civilization, where it's actually important to, like, understand the complexity of each of the different races. Like, sometimes you just need bad guys, kill them all, like
Reapers.
Doom or something. I don't need to know the morality of, like, the fucking demons with rocket launchers. It's just, like, kill them all. It's like, it's that simple.
Shit, yeah, Doom is
let's
fucked.
have a
Doom is out.
actually, Doom is interesting, right? Because the humans went to hell to exploit the resources of hell to fuel their own technology. It's almost like an allegory for colonialism. Oh no! What are you saying?
Yeah,
What are you
but
saying about the demons?
Well, the demons, the demons had, I guess, in the Doom lore, in the Doom lore, like eons before the events of Doom, there was all of these hell fights and hell wars that the hell denizens and demons fought against people who weren't evil. So
fuck you, be evil.
They're just evil. They're just bad.
I was more appealing to the concept of demons. It's like demons are usually characterized by like, oh no, an evil thing. Like it's gonna do evil things. There are different IPs that take a demon and they make it more complicated than simply evil, but a lot of fucking content is just like, no, the demon is the evil faction. You're like, right.
Yeah, Satan is irredeemably evil, canonically, in the lore. You know, he's evil. He's not gonna. He can't redeem himself. He's not gonna redeem himself. He doesn't want to. He never even could if he did want to. He's just an evil bastard.
I just like this idea. There's a big room filled with different tabletop things, and James Hodes is like, "What are you guys playing?" It's like Lord of the Rings. Like, oh, okay. Anyway, what are you guys playing? Halo. Oh, fuck that. What are you guys playing? Doom. Oh, fuck that. Well, none of you can be my friends. And leaves. It's like,
what are you guys playing? What are you guys playing? Mario. Oh, that's no.
That can't
No,
work.
the Goombas didn't have a choice.
The
Did they?
Koopas didn't. Yeah.
How does he find enjoyment in anything?
I don't know that it's possible if you're working through this lens. Like,
Maybe those Goombas were pacifists and they had families.
maybe the reason why they're upset is because Mario's been, the Mushroom Kingdom's been building factories in Goomba land. And they've been employing them, and the Goombas have tried to unionize, but Peach published ads that tried to disincentivize them from unionizing.
Damn it, Bowser.
Yeah, Bowser was just he was just the person that all the oppressed Goombas rallied behind to fight against this mushroom
what
oppression.
happened was the Koopas, they do mining. The Hammer Bros have the hammers and stuff. So there was a mine collapse sometime, and Bowser tried to coordinate rescue efforts, but Princess Peach didn't give a shit because it's just numbers. She doesn't really give a shit about the people. And so really,
Goombas aren't even really people when you get down to it.
Well, as far as she's concerned, yeah. And so Bowser is really upset, and he's basically formed. I don't know. I guess it's like Bowser is. I'm trying to think of what that would lead to. I want to find an interesting story for Bowser's villain backstory. Maybe he's the hero after all, and Mario is an allegory for just the way that countries just throw men into wars. To just disposable wars to stop the people
dying
over there
again and again and again and again.
Yeah. And for what? For what? For capitalism. That's what.
Braggs needs to learn standpoint theory. Satan is just misunderstood. No, Satan is evil. Satan is evil, and he has to be evil. That's the whole idea. He's evil.
If you ever have Satan being non-evil or complicated, it's because you're trying to subvert what we understand to be Satan. That's like
you're writing in your fan fiction for the mythology. Satan's fucking evil. He didn't have a choice in the matter. He was gonna do what he was gonna do. That's why he was created.
Which is
sorry,
lame.
That's how it is. Yeah, poor Satan. Sympathy for the devil, dare I say.
Pat him on the head.
This cat sitting over here, this cat over to the left, he's like, "Fuck me, dude!" Like, just
why am I here?
Yeah.
Alrighty, 43 seconds in, hour and 40.
That's about right.
Yay!
Mendez Hodes, who guest wrote this episode. Thanks so much, Mendez. Much of the recent conversation on orcs points out that characterizing a whole species in your game as ugly, warlike, and malevolent might be harmful.
Here we go.
This is so Freudian. This is the most Freudian image I think I've ever seen.
Malevolent. Holy shit.
It's like, oh my god, this is the image that you got to see today.
This is like this is the
first thing I saw about
He's got
this
better
video.
tits than she does.
I'm pretty sure it was for Weekend Warrior.
Look
I think you wrote, what are you trying to say with this picture? I don't understand or something.
It's so Freudian.
Yeah,
they made a major mistake with this one.
Yeah.
Well, they're showing the slide because they're trying to visualize the point that this isn't what their video is about, right? So this is why they're showing this slide. But then, as the video goes on, like you were saying before, they allude to basically the same point that they were saying it's not.
Yes,
but like
we're totally not saying this, guys. But our video relies on this being the case,
right?
Because this video is about if there were no people who unironically thought this image was a real thing, this video wouldn't exist.
I want a story about an orc barista now. I like the idea of that.
Or a hairdresser,
trying to make it in the big city, making all these coffees, but he wants to write a screenplay.
But yeah, fucking hell.
Story.
So it's so awkward to listen to that first season. It's just like, Jesus Christ.
I don't know who the fuck is thinking that, by the way. Like when they see an orc.
Yeah,
I think of elderly black women sipping coffee.
as ugly,
It's
warlike,
these
and benevolent
people.
might be harmful to real-world groups, regularly mischaracterized as ugly, warlike, and benevolent. However,
Jesus.
this video isn't that. Though if you want more on that discussion,
That's not what we're
Mendez
talking about,
breaks it
though.
down wonderfully.
See, so he just said, like, we're not doing that, but that is valid. And it's like, what?
And also, Mahler, we're not doing that. But over on James Mendez's channel, he breaks it down amazingly, all of these concepts. But it's not us, but you should totally go to James's channel and his blogs, and you should read all of his fucking leftist drivel about orcs.
Well, hey.
By the way, don't go to his channel. It's shit. It's not even entertainingly bad. He's a bore.
It's important in case you enjoyed Lord of the Rings. That's what you need. You need help, okay? Stop it.
Wonderfully
I'm gonna
over on his
tell.
website.
when your
and we'll have a
video
link
is
to
480i, you need to maybe get a new camera. at least.
that in the description.
Sorry.
But here, we're going to talk about something related.
All right.
Why characterizing a group like this in your game?
Dragons aren't always characterized as evil.
Yeah, you've got a
skeletons.
skeleton, a
True.
devil, an orc, and a dragon.
I guess it's just like basic symbolic depictions of evil
Yeah, I guess.
things.
Right, but
Yeah.
I would actually agree that like skeletons and devils and orcs I'm mostly okay with, but dragons are often
Dragons are a mixed
portrayed as
bag.
good
Dragons
guys.
are all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dragons are
Game
good.
can
and
be
bad
lazy
and-
at best and at worst, actively harmful to the world you're creating.
All right.
Which is sort of the point, isn't it, of an evil race?
Well, that they're
What an
harmful.
odd point to bring up is like,
Yeah.
guys, that
Oh.
an evil race can be actively harmful to the world you're in. Is like, yeah.
I'm sure he means
Duh.
from a consistency standpoint.
Are you sure?
Yes, because it would be a retarded thing to say that like they might hurt your heroes. Like, yep,
yeah.
they might do.
But
They're literally. I think the image sort of is in. It's
You just
Maybe
said
let's
that they were
see.
representative symbols in the past slide. How is this not the same thing?
This represents the idea that I think that they said, which is retarded. But I don't think they're smart enough to. I see. Here's the thing. I don't think that extra credits is smart. I think that they think they're smart.
Well.
as somebody's mentioned, was it what was the name of the Sir Dan from Medieval? He's a little skeleton man, and he's a hero.
Well,
I'm not
this
even
is the
sure.
thing. There are
I
exceptions.
don't even know that I want to put skeletons in that list. To be honest with you, I feel like there are a decent amount of stories
man,
with
there are
skeletons.
Yeah, there are
Demons who are
good
good
skeletons in
guys.
Divinity.
There are good guy demons in Buffy and Angel. so-
Skullduggery, the skeleton man detective. What was he again? It's been a while since I read that book. But anyway, yeah, let's go.
When
Press
designing
on.
a game's world and populating it with fictional species, a designer might be tempted to differentiate them from one another by certain inalienable qualities, like their
So you have to though.
So
Well,
I-
it would-
I think this would
Well,
be
that's
a
how
good point to add in right now is that I personally find it really boring to do morally aligned like species and races. I definitely
like elves
prefer,
always
like,
good,
the
orcs always bad.
Well, like one of the things, yeah, like if I were ever doing one of these things, I don't think I'd ever want to have like just the evil, because I always find it interesting to explore the idea of like, what if we actually look at the POV of like the bad guy minions and humanize the bad guy minions? But I recognize that like if you're doing something like Star Wars or you know, like some
Well,
big
Lord of the
broader
Rings.
story, it's often a lot. Yeah, well, it's easier to have a big amalgamation of bad guys because it means that you don't have to deal with the moral consequences of killing things. Like, I mean, Avengers is a good example, right? The Chitauri are just these evil aliens, so you don't have to worry about the heroes beating them up because they're basically evil. But
And
like,
then
I
it's robots.
personally would prefer it if people were, if we had more fantasy worlds and stuff where we actually tried to not do the moral alignment, not because I think that there's any bad real world implications, but more so just because I don't find it as personally interesting.
Yeah, sure, it's more
I
interesting
think I would-
to
generally
have,
in-
multiple alignments in a single species or race.
Yeah,
Just
I think
interesting
it's
from a
probably
writing
more
standpoint.
drama.
It's more interesting.
Yeah.
But sure, if
I
you
think
have
in
like a
fantasy
hack and
settings-
slash game, you just need like the
Bad guys.
evil
Yeah.
bad guys. Like this guy's evil because they're born evil. Okay. Blah, blah, blah.
Well, generally, there's plenty of room for both. If you have all these if you have a setting, you don't want to make it too small, and you have all these races, and you can have everything from you can have the orcs, and they have, I don't know, maybe they're you use like a nomadic kind of template for them going from place to place, moving around. They're less centralized, and they're doing their own thing. They're not evil, but you also have like zombies, or you have some you can have both. Essentially, you can have the evil creatures and all of their unique aspects, especially how it relates to combat and problem solving for your players. And you can have those segments where you don't have to worry about the morality of killing the bugs or the spiders or the zombies or the dark spirit skeletons or what have you. That's just for, you problem solving and tactics and things like that. But then you also have, okay, we came across this other race and they're not actually just evil. There's plenty of room for
maybe
both.
they have like an evil government and or
that's
evil
the thing.
institutions, belief systems.
It shouldn't be assumed to be a contradiction. Rather, we just don't have the information. So, for example, if you have humans 2, humans 3, and they're just these 3 big civilizations across a really big world, and all of humans 3 fight for Sauron while the rest of us band against him, and it's like, humans 3 are the same as humans 2 and 1, like, in every single way. So why are they all fighting for him? Is that a contradiction? Shouldn't there be some that don't, or some, and it's like, I guess we just don't know, or spell has been cast, or they've been given so much propaganda that they see us as we see them. Like, there's all these different stories you could run with, but like the idea that for the sake of my story, humans 3 are fighting with Sauron, we have to stop them. Like the Easterlings in Lord of the Rings, right?
Yeah.
We don't go, wait, I want to know why the Easterlings fight for Sauron. It's like, this is a world stage. All kinds of factions are fighting for all kinds of reasons that we can't get into right now.
Sure, they have their reasons.
This reminds me of the prequels. When wasn't it Cosmo Variety Hour who said, like, we don't even know why the planets are joining the CIS. Like, you can assume, we cannot get into why every single planet is doing everything they do. We have vague sort of ideas from Count Dooku and different characters about like the state of the world.
Yeah, we have references to. Yeah, we have references to the Republic and how it's not all that great all the time, and how this, that, and the other thing. It's pretty clear that you could draw some lines. And then infer some things.
The alternate idea is you have a drone or a type of animal or creature that has been modified to be unable to do anything but fight for the bad guys or whatever. So you don't need more meaningful reasons. You just go, that's all they can do. They don't know anything else because of the way they've been, like Cybermen from Doctor Who again. I don't know why my examples are coming from Doctor Who, but obviously it's just humans converted cybernetically. I mean, the Borg would be another example,
Borg,
right?
Yeah.
It's just dependent on what's going on. And to assume the worst, like orcs are thinking creatures that are all evil from the get-go, which is a contradiction. I just feel like, why have you assumed all of this? Where did you get all this from?
I don't think they're even talking about that though, Muller. I think it's more simple and reductive than that. Like, I'm not sure that we're talking about story consistency or potency or anything like that.
Well, I assume that's what this is. Like, orcs are morally aligned to be evil, and they're like, that's Dumbus.
Well, I guess.
I mean, if
Dumbus.
If you want to make them that way in your story, sure.
Well, obviously, we'll listen to their argument first. I'm sort of just trying to counter expected ones. Like, I don't think we can call it a problem until we know more of the specifics about how they managed to be that way and what they are. Someone in chat said, like, didn't Saruman say they were, like, tortured elves or whatever? And then even with that, that's just not enough, right? It's like, what does that mean? What happened to them? Why are they the way that they are exactly? And what does it mean for them going forward? Could they ever fight for man? It's like, I don't think so, from what we're shown.
Because, like, their brains are decomposed or something, but they get re-inhabited, but with their old corrupted souls or something?
I figure the easy answer is that Sauron's got a really strong control over them. And the rings, like, they want power, and to make Sauron win is to have the most power. Why Saruman joined him?
Yeah.
Saruman's not even an orc. He's a wizard. He's a white wizard.
Yeah. That's the thing, right? Like, to go back to the...
than any racial thing.
Like, the orcs in Lord of the Rings, I mean, I'm no Lord of the Rings expert, but, like, the purpose of the orcs is... in the story is like they are a boundary to force the main characters in a particular direction to tell a more centralized story about power, I think, fundamentally, which is what the ring represents. Like, to explore the orcs and give them multi-dimensional personalities just kind of gets in the way of that, because you don't need that. Like, their role in that story is to just be this brutal, ruthless force. It's like you see an orc on the screen, it's like, oh shit, the main characters are in danger, they better run. Like, it's okay to have characters that just hack and slash everything. They're just brutal. That's what they are.
Yeah,
you have like other characters who are...
the dialogue reflects like evil interests as well. Most of the things they say is usually just like, lol, Aragorn fell off the cliff, that piece of shit. Yeah, that's mean to say, Mr. Orc.
I sure love dead men.
Yeah, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I fucking hate people who are good.
I hate the happiness. It's fucking annoying.
I guess. Wait. Now I'm just trying to. So, if because now I'm thinking about the, I'm thinking about Boromir, probably the best character in Lord of the Rings, right? And how his whole journey is about him getting like corrupted by the ring because he's desperate to have the power to like protect Gondor and all that. I guess now I'm just thinking like, surely we can all recognize that like the Lord of the Rings, what it's about is like universal, and that regardless of where you come from or like what race you are, because that shouldn't matter anyway, that like there's something in there that can speak to all humans because it's so universal as an experience. Like nobody can relate to orcs. Like no human being can relate to the orcs in that universe because they're so
by design, I would say, right?
Yeah, I guess that's I'm not sure where I was going with that one. I guess it's just it feels like I don't know why anybody would look at Lord of the Rings and assume that the orcs are meant to be representative of any group of human beings. I'm not sure who could even do that.
Well,
They're so
when I first heard the
non-human.
argument, I was just like, "Are you just looking for ways to be pissed off at Lord of the Rings because it's so great? Is that what's happening? Like, what? Why bother?"
I think that considering the author, yeah. I think that this is a person who looks for victimization and oppression and things to whine about as it relates to his personal race.
I guess weird as well.
Racial allegory just falls apart. I don't think it really holds any water. It pay any attention to the text.
Well, and that's the problem with allegory. If someone presents like this is what Lord of the Rings is saying, and then someone else goes, "Well, I've got equally good, if not better, references that say the opposite. So now what?"
I would say the references are better. Like,
well, that's what I said. Like, I was saying, like, at the very least, they are as competent and able to back you off. So it's just like, so what do you do? And it's like, well, it's how I feel. And it's like, should Lord of the Rings change because you feel it should? I was like, that seems a bit weird to me. But the funny thing is, the next iteration of game or TV show or movie is probably going to include, like, hey, orcs? They're actually, like, there's this whole thing going on, okay, guys? They're not. We don't want people thinking we're racist, okay? Like, oh my god.
Moral alignment. Violent versus...
I thought Theo was going to say something, I wasn't sure.
I'm good. I'm done.
Alright.
Peaceful, law versus chaos, good versus evil, and the like. It's a common trope in speculative fiction, but it's...
Oh, the original point. Sorry, I think it got kind of cut off by the other discussion that we've been doing. Let me take this back just a little bit. Because they say a weird thing, if you could believe it.
All right.
When designing a game's world and populating it with fictional species, a designer might be tempted to differentiate them from one another by certain inalienable qualities, like their more...
You might be tempted to differentiate different things by inalienable qualities. That might be a temptation that you have, guys.
Kind of is the basis of differentiation.
I mean, you see these two on screen, you're like, there's a lot of things that are differentiating them inherently by their species. It's not really a surprise. I guess...
No, everyone's the same size, same shape, gray skin, gray suit.
The Grey Blobber universe.
Be tempted.
Eating gray slime.
They're the
as a writer
from Futurama.
Like, how else can you differentiate two things?
I
think there's no other way. That's how you do it.
I think it was a sentence.
Chaos spectrum as well.
It was a sentence to set up the next sentence, and they didn't think how stupid it would be. Like if I wanted to say The Boys is badly written, and so I open with, some things are badly written. And then I say that, and you'd be like, I mean, why was he the first fucking yes? Like, why would you?
It's almost like it's like saying some writers might be tempted to use their imagination when creating a fictional universe, and you're like, you can't have it any other way.
You might be tempted to differentiate people by differentiating them.
Yeah, kind of. It's kind of tautological.
Yeah. Or I guess when he says inalienable, he's not talking about personality traits, I guess, right?
I assumed he was talking about species traits.
Which is that's what makes it that's what makes it ridiculous. Yeah. Is that especially that specific usage.
Wait a minute. Surely like Mass Effect is always a really good example to go to because there are clear differences in like the fundamental ideologies that seem to be persistent among the people of the different races. Like the Krogans are a lot more aggressive and headstrong. The Asari are super
Go more basic.
loving and scientific. Wait, what? Go more basic.
Yeah, just go more unalienable. Inalienable.
I guess it's just that those are kind of inalienable, right? Because it's kind of
you can teach like the different races to behave in different ways.
Oh, sure, but I guess it's the idea of like
we're talking about like the inalienable characteristics of the Krogan. You look at a Krogan and you're like, oh, like their genes, what their body is. You know, what that species is.
Fringy's looking to explore whether or not there are such things as inalienable personality traits. For example, if someone said dwarves are always like boisterous and loud, and they always... You could say the same thing, like we do it a lot with like Australians could be obnoxious, or British people can be really up their own ass, like stuff like that. They're more like stereotypes. But at the same time, if you had a dwarf grow up in an elvish society, he might be a little bit more frustrated than a lot of the rest of the elves, but at the same time, he's going to be so much more chill than probably most dwarves ever.
Right.
Yeah.
But even those aren't intrinsic in the way that they're talking about it, which is what makes it so bizarre.
I know what they're saying. I guess what I'm getting at is like, I feel like the line's a little blurry on this one, depending on, like, I feel like you can, depending on what story you write, you can always push it by degrees more and more into, like, I feel like everybody is like exactly the same, and then you have different countries and national identities or different religious ones, and then you push it further of like different alien species, and maybe they just have different, they evolved in a different environment which changes their outlook and changes their biology and all that, and then you just keep pushing it further and further by degrees. At what point does it become where is the line that would make it alienable versus inalienable, I guess, is what I'm trying to think about at the moment. It's not super important. I'm trying to explore this more than I think this video is going to.
Oh yeah, I was just pointing out what an insanely dumb sentence that they wrote down.
We'll be tangenting everywhere.
We haven't even gotten to what the fuck any of this has to do with game design.
Alignment. Violent versus peaceful, law versus chaos, good versus evil, and the like. It's a common trope in speculative fiction, but especially in the context of a game, painting an entire species with the same moral brush actually weakens the entire thing.
So this is one of those. So two things here. What Fringy was probably going to allude to is one of those things.
Yeah.
But two, this kind of gets into what I was mentioning earlier about how their imagery and their usage of painting things with an evil brush doesn't make sense if you, as the creator of the universe, have decreed that these orcs are intrinsically evil. Yeah. You're not painting them with the brush. Like, there's no brush. The evil is the paint, and it's not even the paint. The orcs are the evil thing. They're not creatures that have been painted evil.
It makes as much sense as saying they're orcs. He's like, stop painting these creatures as orcs. It's like, they are orcs. What do you
exactly,
mean?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the problem, is there's painting something as evil is like if something exists and then you assign attributes to it in your opinion versus like you created these things to be this way. You haven't painted them with a brush. They are that because you're the creator and you said that that's what they are.
Just to rewind slightly.
Yeah, the paint implies the superficiality.
Yeah, like if I said all dwarves are obnoxious, like thinking earlier, and then someone was like, you shouldn't really be painting all dwarves as obnoxious. And I'd be like, oh yeah, that's fair. They're not all of them are. They just are that way. And you're just like, okay. That would be more applicable than, you can't call the evil things evil. You're like, what do you mean? I don't understand.
Yeah.
And then I suppose we should get to the how in this video is probably next.
Well, I was thinking of that character example you came up with, some dude who's like half Krogan, half dwarf or whatever. Yeah. It's like you could make a great story out of that, right? Like have him be the main character, then you'd have to think like, well, what's his transformation? Like, what does he learn? But then, like, if the broader story isn't about that, then don't bother with that. It's okay for him to just be a one-dimensional.
Every story has to be incredibly layered and complex, and it all has to be allegorical of real-life issues. It can never just be a thing you wanted to make because you liked it.
Right.
This idea that a certain subgroup, like race, nationality...
Oh no. We got footage.
Oh no. No one thinks this. It's insane.
Evil?
Like, nobody thinks this. This is nuts.
personality, or sex has inalienable traits is called biological essentialism or simply bioessentialism. And it's a valid way to talk about qualities like how many legs an animal has or whether it can fly. But all too often, this concept gets misused in untrue statements, like pit bulls are a violent breed, men are more logical than women, or Asians are better.
Wait.
They are.
So
wait,
this
hold
is
on. Wait a minute. But doesn't bioessentialism apply to like? Don't certain animals have certain ways that they behave though?
okay. So this is I think the issue here is that we're okay. So let's use because I honestly don't want to touch the second or third example they're going to do here. But let's go with the pit bull one because it's more simple and it won't get us banned. So pit bull, if statistically pit bulls are absolutely the most violent dog, and it's not even fucking close. Despite making up only 6.5% of the dog population, pit bull fatalities and dog bites account for 66% of deaths. Like, it's kind of nuts. Yeah, it's really big.
Damn.
So here we go. Are we talking about violence as a? This is the thing. This is the difference between. Are we saying that they're violent in a descriptive way, or are we saying that they're violent in a prescriptive way? Like, it is what it is. Do we just use like intrinsically? A pit bull is not violent in that sense, but genetically they are more
likely
predisposed or more likely to be violent, but that's a description we put on behavior that they can have. Right? And there's other factors that contribute to that.
I wish it weren't considered so taboo because like I think it's fine when you're just doing sort of tendencies and generalizations. For example, the ones I brought up earlier being the Australian versus the Brit. You can have certain expectations and you're likely going to be able to predict quite a few things about the way that those two different people approach different things. And the same goes for like an American or a Russian or whatever. You can just be like, yeah, there's a tendency toward blah, blah, blah. And I guess what they're trying to get at is like, okay, but it's not intrinsic. You cannot say that every single British person will send a letter when they want to complain about something rather than being upfront because they're all about that civility.
Yeah, there's...
But like, so I don't know, to be the like, yeah, that second, like, oh, men are more logical. I would just be like, okay, you could in a vacuum try and be very careful about how you'd want to explain that. And I would probably, if ever wanted to approach that situation again, not looking to get banned, perhaps you could argue in exchange, women are often much more emotionally available and understanding or empathetic. And these two traits may have come from the fact that those two sides would have had to be dealing with problems that required those two things more so than the other. Hopefully we're still alive. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, things are... Yeah, like a pit bull is statistically more likely to be responsible for a fatal dog bite. That doesn't mean that each individual pit bull is a killer.
Well, so I guess that's where I'm getting a little... So bioessentialism, he says it's like... So this is apt to explain basically the physical manifestation of evolutionary traits, but what about like the behavioral manifestations of evolutionary traits, like the general behavior of deer versus wolves or sharks or panthers or like bears? Would that be considered separate? Or is that also part of bioessentialism too? I've never really heard about this subject before, so I'm not sure what the word means.
And this whole tangent that he's doing is kind of like not even relevant to the point of orcs, because the orcs are whatever you say that they are. In a fictional world, they do whatever. Well, they're anything you want them to be for any reason that you'd like.
I think that's his point, is that you shouldn't be making things like that. That's wrong, because it'll make people think about it IRL, and then that'll create problems, because it'll make people say things that are wrong IRL. You know, like if the nicest person, Mr. Rogers, it said, you know, men more logical than women seems to be to me, and then he goes to jail. But like, it would be like, oh well, what did he base that on? It's just like, I don't know, just some interactions he thought about, whatever. And then some other person listens to it and goes, we should kill all women. Yes, the world would be a better place. You're like, oh no, oh no. And I think that's just like this end point that people are very, very concerned about whenever you have the topics at like the really, really simplistic, like nobody's gonna die level. For example, just the obvious caveat that plenty of women will be more logical than plenty of men. That's fine, all right? You can say everything, all vice versa, all traits floating around. But if you make your world and you say, nah, dwarves really like drinking. That's just something they just like kind of do in a vacuum. It's not even about their culture. They just, oh man, they love that alcohol. They just get like a really strong desire for it. They just, and once they find it, like, oh yeah, I love this shit. Someone's like, you can't have that. Because then it's like, dwarves will be like the drunks or the stupids. And you can't be having that. That's bioessentialist. Fucked up. When you're just like, oh no, I want to have some fun. I'm not trying to say this is like some kind of, it doesn't put them on a lower scale species-wise than... You know, I'm getting. It's like I think it just we're worried about where it might end up versus what it is.
Yeah, this is my whole problem with the video. Orcs aren't real, and like how, like the whole tangent. Like, how would you then apply the racial trait to an actual existing like part of humanity? That's if anything, you have the problem, not me, right? Am I the only one that thinks that? It's like, it's crazy.
To kind of tie to that, there is an aspect here, and we see this often, where there's a lot of projection that comes from these kinds of people. They are the way that they see race and the way that they try and connect fantasy with reality. That's something that's in their heads, and so they try to put that onto other people, and they assume that other people think these thoughts, and they think that other people, surely other humans like me, must think this way and draw these connections. When we tell them, no, people don't think this, you're an insane, crazy person who needs help, they can't believe that.
And someone said, with the dwarves, they can be seen as more durable and able to handle poisons better or something like that. And yeah, so this is, if we're doing traits from top to bottom, it's like extra credits are with us, and they're like, oh, what are dwarves? It's like they're shorter, but they're more brawlers. They're able to handle damage more and whatever because they're biology, and they're like, oh cool. Then you go, also they're a little bit more like willing to jump into the fight. They're a lot less scared. And then extras will be like, whoa, you've just applied a personality trait that I don't like. That should be as a result of their upbringing or the choices they make. It shouldn't be as part of their biology. And you're like, oh,
and that
I just meant that as a tendency. Like I didn't, and I think this is what's happening. It's just suddenly it's like you've become super evil. You're like, no, I didn't. That's not what I'm going for.
These tendencies seem to be getting confused as, part of a creature's genetic makeup. When
I was just
I don't think a single person has ever thought that.
Yeah, a line needs to be drawn when you're talking about stuff like this. Like if you were to say, like, Rags, bioessentialism, like, what's bioessentialist about a human? And I'd be like, okay, I guess like DNA. The genetic structure of what we, see as a human, that's the bioessentialist nature of it. And that's just what I'd say. I wouldn't go into really behaviors nearly as much, because those behaviors you could change your behavior, and you could change the behavior of people easier than you could change their other characteristics.
If you had you were designing a game and human was one of the several different species you could pick to play as, and you said to be like, in a vacuum, what statistics would you push higher for human than our orcs, elves, and dwarves stuff? And I'd be like, I don't know, maybe we could push curiosity, and that maybe plays into some mechanic in the game, or pattern recognition. Maybe that's higher for humans than other species. Desire for
generalities are key here.
Yeah, like these things seem to be consistent across humanity. Like we've evolved to be very much interested in figuring things out, solving problems. We're all about that shit a lot of the time.
Well, that's key to evolution, really. Is if we want to look at this from that kind of scientific perspective.
A world with like brand new species that have been like the elves who have been
now chances are, if a game is set in the real world.
There we go.
If you create a species like elves and you basically determine that for millennia they've been godlike and unstoppable, they might not quite have maintained whatever they had trait-wise that's similar to humans when they were first developing and getting to be the dominant race or whatever. We've talked about it before, but I just like the idea that humans, despite being so low-leveled compared to a lot of fictional alternative species that we end up seeing in fiction, that we still have the the plucky nature of a young race, and that there's traits that come with that are very admirable. But if someone said, if I was to put all those in, and someone was like, well, that's very bioessentialist of you, I'd be like, oh, I didn't want to
just talks to a generality. Calm down.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be some evil thing. It's just chill. Calm down.
Yeah, and those generalities again are descriptive of what we see in their behavior. If humans had been another way in this universe, then we would be describing them differently. So important to note.
Mm-hmm. The bioessentialism thing seems really tacked on to this.
Yes,
like
it
I don't
absolutely
trust his
is.
account of it.
If you're designing a game, you're not thinking about bioessentialism. You're thinking,
No.
okay, is this fun? Like, what is the player going to be doing with the controller? What are the enemies? What are the sprites going to be? You know, it's like when the guy made Space Invaders. You know, he's not thinking like, what is the bioessentialism of these fucking pixelated aliens? Like, gives a shit. They're there to shoot.
Yeah, and I would also say as well, like the idea of giving elves, dwarves, and man these specific, dare I say, bioessentialist traits in a world of Lord of the Rings, or whether or not it's Lord of the Rings, just whatever. Part of that is interesting when you make them a team. You're like, oh shit, all the things that make them different will now bounce off each other to help each other as a group. That's cool. And someone else is like, yes, but it's problematic. I'd be like, what? Like, why do you have to know?
It's like,
how do you talk about anything anymore?
Yeah.
How do you write anything in fantasy?
And unless I missed something, they're not limiting game design in this case to tabletop games and RPGs. They're talking about all games, right? Like game design, period.
Yeah, I think so. And specifically, I think what they're getting at here is that if we were designing the game and I said the elven race has a higher intelligence than other races at the base stat, they'd be like, you can't do that. That's fucked up. I'd be like, oh.
Yeah, that's... Now, if we talk about like base stats on like races and things of that nature, if I had a player who came to, if I was the GM, and someone came to me and said, so about these starting stats for races, and instantly I'd be on guard hearing that, but I'd be like, yeah, go on. And they said, so if they were going to argue that there's no reason a dwarf should have less charisma than an elf, for instance, if that was the rules, I would be far more keen to be like, okay, sure, instead of if they had said, yeah, a hobbit should be just as fast as an elf. You know,
I think they're on board with you on that one. They said that the differences in like biology, that's chill, but yeah, so I agree with you, because like I like the idea of a particularly charismatic dwarf and then a particularly like sheltered elf, and you know, you team them up because you don't expect that necessarily. Then again, dwarves are probably relatively like socially competent, I imagine. I don't know, I guess it depends on what fiction
it's up to your universe. It's up to you and how their culture sort of is. You could do it either way. That's the joy of the freedom, that you could make whatever you want as long as this person doesn't think it's linked to racism in some way.
Yeah, because I have a feeling someone would be like, wait, wouldn't it be the reverse? Like in this example, it's whatever the fucking person designed it to be, and then someone comes up to them and says, I would rather it not be that. Can we maybe tweak it a bit? And yeah, and depending on the situation, you totally can. But I think that you've kind of lost the plot if you say, like, Rags, I want my dwarves to be more charismatic, and you go, oh no, the world is built this way on purpose, and I go, I'm not playing. Like, okay. That's...
And I would say, well, maybe if you want to be a charismatic dwarf, then you can do that, and that could be like a story thing for your character. That could be part of your character's journey, and part of their characteristics is that while most dwarves are seen as very stoic and boring and not very, sociable or charismatic, your dwarf actually really is. And so he has to fight against that stereotype, and it surprises people how well-spoken he is, and how able he is to pick up on social cues, and how funny his fucking jokes are. And that could be a thing that you could have as interesting to your character, but I'm not going to alter my entire universe for you.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, like, that's an interesting response, right? It's like, you are going to be the charismatic of that particular non-charismatic selection, and they go, no, I want the selection to be charismatic. You know, like,
so,
okay.
Well, then we can't tell the story.
I want all the dwarves to be charismatic.
Well, yeah, they consider it offensive that you've made them non-charismatic. You know, there's people in chat right now who are like, dwarves aren't typically that, and it's like, that could be the reasoning for their complaint. They could be like, I don't think dwarves should be non-charismatic. And you're like, well, they are in my world. And you're like, I don't care. I want you to change it. Like,
that's the fun idea. I want to be the battle, the in a world that sees orcs as barbaric and, what's the word, pugnacious. I want to be a very charismatic, like a bard orc who doesn't want to fight, who's very peaceful, and he's a pacifist, and that's what makes that character interesting in this world. People do that all the time.
Yeah.
They play off the total opposite tropes of what people expect.
Right.
It's fun.
Yeah, and you can't have
Actually,
opposite
calling
tropes.
dwarves articulate? Maybe?
Yeah, you can't have opposite tropes if there aren't any tropes or traits. You know, it can't be, wow, how shocking that this thing is this thing.
Yeah.
It's like that wouldn't exist.
This manner of looking at races just leads to every race just being, they're all just humans.
And
they're all just
they're all just gray blobs that are identical.
Yeah, and I think that the way that you could probably settle it for these guys, I don't know if this would work for them, but if you said, you know, that trait for elves, it's not you are born with it, it's you're picking a character that's already existed in elven culture for XYZ years, and that's why that intelligence stat is higher than others, because of the culture and society they grew up in. I imagine they would be more amenable to that rationale, but I still think
I've always seen that.
Well, but if I
even
said
different races, though,
if I told you that the stats are like born stats, and then you get to live in my game, you live through each of their cultures, and then you do whatever. I assume they'd find that offensive. They'd be like, you can't have the elf having 5 intelligence at birth when the dwarf has 4. That's fucked up. It's just funny because from a mechanical standpoint, you're like, no, there's a reason for this. It's about balance, because the dwarf has bigger, maybe courage. Maybe that's higher for the dwarf. Or something like that.
You're right. Yeah, all of this is sort of it's almost so obvious that I don't even think we've even thought to mention it. All of this is under the concept that it's a video game that should be balanced in some way.
Yeah. You want
that it is an interactive set of rules that people are, messing around with. So
the fundamental problem of game design, you want things to be different from other things, but you also want them to not be more powerful or better as a choice, therefore making the one redundant.
Yes. How do we possibly make halflings as viable of a choice as a battle-hardened, super ripped orc? It's like, well, other things.
Top trumps, when they had Samwise Gamgee being one of the best cards in the top trumps Lord of the Rings because his resilience was 10, I think, is the highest out of any character in the entire thing. And so you beat people with Sam. Fuck them up. So if someone said, that's pretty fucked up, you made a base trait of hobbits to be resilient to the power of the rig, and you're like, I'm tired of this. I don't want to deal with this anymore.
It's problematic in a positive sense, just the same as it is for negative traits. That all elves are charismatic is problematic in just the same way as all dwarves not being charismatic is. So we can't do anything anymore.
Yeah, everyone has to be exactly the same, except they look different. Like, And
they grew up in different cultures, and again.
I mean, just don't have different species in your game if it's going to be an issue. Just the world is literally only humans, and they're all the same quote unquote race of humans. They're all the same. If you don't want to deal with any of this stuff and you don't want it in your world, just have that be the case. Have your setting where it's just you. This takes place on the continent of Baba Ganoush, and everyone's a human. Everyone's a human, and they're all this color because it's tropical. And there, boom.
There's another. As someone just pointed out in chat, there's another benefit of like when you jump into a new game like this, and you're like, what are the races? And you're like, I don't care what I look like. I'm more interested in what their characteristics are. And then you go through them, and you're like, that seems like me. That seems more like me than the others. I'll check that. And that's kind of wiped out if you.
The reviolent breed, men are more logical than women, or Asians are better at math. Now, chances are, if a game is set in the real world, that the designers are avoiding these tropes because they aren't real, as multiple fields of societal and hard science can readily prove to you. But speculative...
I'm sure that will be my
tendencies. I don't think anyone can deny tendencies, all right? It's fine. It's going to be okay.
Oh, yeah, that's what the tropes are.
What do you
the tropes are just descriptions of what we see.
It's the same as stereotypes. People like stereotypes aren't like a real representation. It's like, where do you think they came from? It was seen enough, and it's repeated enough. And when you point it out, and then it happens afterward, it's like, oh my god, yeah, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Not going to hurt anyone.
They're just this is such a huge fucking citation needed on why these tropes exist.
Well,
and
you know why they said it's because they think that if you open up that in any way to a valid sense, then it opens up the door to the next room, which is filled with all of the crazy people. So, like,
that's
it's okay
what they think. If you Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying, the room we're in right now is fine, okay? We're all sitting around the table and we go, lol, metal, the German, he's gonna do XYZ, the two British people are gonna do XY, like, and it's just fun back and forth banter. It can come down to all kinds of different things. The next room, you open that door and there's all people in there like, we should kill the ones who are different. Like, no, we're not going in that room, we locked the door, okay? Let's fuck that room.
It is.
I wasn't having a good time. I was offended personally.
I was offended. Yeah.
Good.
But
it triggered
yeah,
me.
it's they think that if you like point, it's weird because they simultaneously don't want us to point out differences, and they say that like colorblindness, you can't be colorblind. You have to acknowledge people's race, and you have to see the black person as a black person. And if you don't, if you just see them as a person, you're denying or ignoring their lived experience or whatever horseshit they want to peddle on us. But at the same time, if you recognize the difference in the races, then that will turn you into a horrible, evil racist, and that's terrible and awful, and it'll make you a bad person. They want both things. Yeah, you can't win. They want both things at the same time. They have to have it both ways.
Reminds me of something you said. I don't know if it was on a stream or whatever, but I think you said, "Oh, remember when we were in school when we didn't have to think about any races? You were just
those are the days."
Yeah. Yeah,
I think you said
my
that,
parents
Rex,
never.
at some point.
Yeah, my parents never told me about race. I just assumed that different races were different because, in the same way that, like, some people's ears are bigger than others, and some people were taller than others, and some people had brown eyes and blue eyes. My child brain was like, oh yeah, some people are black, and some people are white, and some people are Asian, and some people are Hispanic. That was it. That was all there was. It was just a total superficial sort of thing that I noticed, and it was never an issue. It was never a problem. And I think that might be what I hate the most about like lefties and SJWs and progressives is that they've kind of corrupted that innocence that I've had, where I never saw race as a thing that even need to be talked about, and now I can't get it out of my head because they won't shut up about it.
Here's an
and
example,
they're always
right?
going on about race.
We get when I would have first like wanted to talk about online like different shows or movies I thought were really, really good, and then I look into like reviews of people saying they're fantastic, and one of their opening reasons is like, oh, the amount of like black people or Asian people in it, and I'm like, what? There's just people in it. Like, why did you what? Like, and then by the same note, it's like you could say they have coded us to now watch something like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and you see the new Captain America arrive, and you're like, uh-oh, he's probably going to be a bad guy.
Oh, he's
like,
white guy, he's probably going to be a bad dude.
Yeah, it's like, why would you assume that? It's like, well, after Hayward, the guy who does a whole bunch of good things in WandaVision and is constantly coded to be a bad guy for no fucking reason, and then decides to kill 2 children at the end of it. Like, I'm expecting... I've already heard, by the way, I haven't seen it yet, but apparently in the newest episode, he's definitely evil now. He's done the thing. We said this would happen. I don't know what it's going to be, but like we're just waiting for him to do something really evil because they can't fucking write this shit anymore. It's really embarrassing. And if someone said like, "What have you based that on?" I'd be like, I mean, he's white.
The show.
Part of it is the problem that he's antagonistic to our protagonist, and he's the unfortunately, like the you know, if someone said like, "Wait, the Emperor's white, so why do you care?" I'd just be like, "No, it's not even. White people can be evil. It's fine. It's just awkward now because I didn't used to give any kind of a shit about race, but they've made it so necessary that you can predict writing. We can predict stories by looking at the races of characters, which is not fortunate at all.
It's very bad that we've arrived at this point.
Yeah." But you know,
when I was a kid and I saw Blade, that was the coolest motherfucker in existence.
Oh yeah,
a black vampire with he's got the black coat and the swords and the fangs and those sunglasses. What an absolute unit!
Yeah,
never
I really
even
like
thought
that movie.
Some motherfucker's always trying to ice skate uphill.
So I long for those days of innocence.
Yeah, Blaze is a great example of just like nobody gave a fuck that he was black. He was just awesome.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they care more nowadays that he was black, or at least are more open about it. I guess it's gotten so strange. Media discussion. I just want to talk about the stuff that was really well written and made sense, not whether or not allegorically it's good to represent. I don't know, what is Captain America and Winter Soldier like? He's the machine. He's the government coming in to take things and trying to appear as a hero. I don't even know if we're going to do an EFAP for that show. It's so fucking annoying.
I don't think I care enough about it. Like we'll finish it and we'll hate it because we already do because it's shit. And then we'll get to the end and we'll start off an EFAP by saying, yeah, don't watch this show. It's crap.
I'm just waiting for
ruins things.
The last episode just opens with him just chopping children's heads off with the shield.
Yeah.
He's evil, by the way.
Also, I'll be back in just a second. I need to use the loot real quick. Be right back. Oh my god, talking about black people.
I think people like that who you were talking about, like super lefties, they get caught in, I think, this like emotional loop where they're like, we're all different, but we're all the same, but we're all different, but we're all the same. And like they when they fall on one side, they become so empathetic of and like, I don't know, shamed of themselves that they neglected the other one. It's like, oh, we got to go back there. And that's how you end up with these hypocritical things that are going on right now with like racial segregation, which is just like, what? Like it's seen as a plus by those people, but and then you have a bunch of other people who are just like, what? We're separating races now? Like, is this what we want to do? And
I think
it's so fucked up right now.
It's yeah, basically. I
think they like that drama of it, right? Like the emotion of that loop, rather than just like trying to rest in a logical space somewhere in the middle, like and try and figure out like a consistent stance.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because consistency is key to like actually making sure that you understand what you value and what you're trying to almost push for, I guess.
Right.
And if it's flip-flopping between, because yeah, it seems like emphasizing the differences is not the right way to go about it, because presumably in the ideal world, the differences are like not important to anybody at all anymore. You know, like the difference becomes as significant as the difference in eye color or the difference in like hair color. It just doesn't matter. But it's hard to do that if you're emphasizing all of this, like, no, we need to talk about the ways in which we're different. I don't know. It feels like not... And especially when we're applying it to, like, world building and fucking Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, so we're getting so far removed, and we have so many different motivations to actually have these differences, from not only, like, an interest in terms of the conflict or the bouncing off, but also just fucking balance, that it's getting to the point where, like, look, if you can't handle the idea that orcs are in fiction, just read non-fiction. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
Offers us an opportunity.
By the way, I hope this super inclusive Muslim woman isn't sculpting Muhammad, or she's going to be in trouble.
Yep.
It's interesting that line between fiction and non-fiction is kind of the line. Like in fiction, well, in non-fiction, you deal with human beings in all of their true to life complexity. In fiction, you get to simplify characters. Like, we'll make them as complex as you want, but sometimes the point of fiction is to keep them as simplistic as possible, to make a greater point clear, I think.
Yeah, I think that's one of the strengths of stories, is that you can tap into the empathy that people have for other people to make people reconsider a value or a point or an idea or a theme.
Right.
And that it's easier to present these fundamental principles through the lens of a story, because you can try and remove the complexities and sort of the baggage that's attached to real world things to hit at that fundamental point, and then people can take that and build it up from there. When they address more complex issues, they can work through it by working from whatever the base principle is that they could have gotten from a story.
Right.
I like stories so much.
I mean, children's stories, right? You want to keep things simple,
Yeah.
so you can convey a very particular, like, moral message to a kid. Like, don't do this thing or this will happen. Sometimes the most efficient way to tell a story like that is to have very, like, cardboard characters. Like, this character is this thing.
How does extra credits draw a beheading?
What?
Well, I'm guessing
No.
they're like Rayman characters, right? That's why you're saying that. Well, the hands and heads are anyway.
Well, I mean, Rayman's head is attached to his body. Wait, hold on. Wait a minute. Hold on. Is Rayman's head attached to his... No, it's not. He has no neck.
Right?
That's right. He's totally limbless.
Yeah.
God, when are we going to get a new Rayman game? Rayman Legends was awesome.
Why don't you make it yourself, free fuck?
Yeah.
Maybe I will.
Maybe I will.
But speculative fiction offers us an opportunity to reify or make real various.
What's the difference between speculative fiction and other forms of fiction?
Speculative fiction is when is basically just science fiction and fantasy. It's any fiction where you've made pretty significant changes to the world or the way that reality works.
Okay, it's
so
different from like historical fiction or alt history.
Well, so yeah, but alt history, speculative fiction is. I think alt history counts as speculative. It's basically anything that isn't based on the real world as we know it. Whereas, like for example, a detective story like Bosch or something, that's not speculative. It's set in the real world in like the modern day or in a time that actually happened.
Okay.
So maybe Assassin's Creed is probably like would be speculative fiction, even though it's part of like real history because there's so much stuff that's changed and like fantasy elements that it becomes not that. So yeah, Star Wars is speculative fiction, Marvel is speculative fiction, Lord of the Rings is speculative.
The term sounded suspiciously like I don't have to do any research. It's a speculative plot.
I'm just speculating on what Orcs would actually be like.
Yeah.
Or make real various things which don't exist, or to exaggerate things which do. Now, bioessentialism is a tempting idea in fantasy for some of the same reasons as it is in the real world. But
Whoa.
What?
I'll let him finish, but like, whoa. All right.
because to our human minds, broad generalizations are comforting. They reduce the world to simple cut and dry categories. All orcs bad, all elves good, root for these folks, not for these folks. But just like...
That's so fucking...
Not a
Like,
single person
where are you
views
going
the
with
world
this?
that way.
Yeah.
Not a single person views fiction that way.
This is the thing.
That's
it's
not even how the
dependent,
human mind works.
dependent on the IP as well. Like the idea that it's just orcs in general. Like when did that happen?
Well, this is just... This is the...
By design evil.
This is the projection element coming where you watching this is why you painting things in a broad brush, this is why you do it, because it's just so much more comforting and it's so much safer, you know? Like, I don't know, I feel like if I'm walking down the street and like there's a lion on the sidewalk, I'm okay with broadly categorizing that lion as wanting to eat me and running away. That sounds useful.
Yeah.
Categorize because we can't not categorize.
Yeah, like without it,
It's-
we're fucked.
It's inherent to us. Like it makes the world intelligible.
Like in the
Like
real
everything can't be anything. Like now, when I look at something, when I look at that tree, the tree outside my door. I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna broadly categorize this tree based on my lived experiences, because they fucking love those. My lived experiences with trees and how they behave and what their properties are. I feel like there's a lot of extremely valid ways to broadly paint things. There are bad ways, sure. But I feel like in most instances it's actually extremely beneficial and useful and is totally lacking in any moral component either.
Again, I think it's necessary. I don't think we can function without doing it.
Well, here's an example.
Yeah, because we'd be terrified every single time we saw anything, because we would have no idea how it may or may not function. Every car, every staircase, every plant, every animal, everything. If our mind believes that it could probably just do anything, the world would be nonsense.
Yeah.
Here's an example, right? I've told this on EFAP before. It's just a funny story, but now it's applicable in a different way. I was coming home from work, and I was going down a particularly long alley in the middle of my town. I had my hoodie on. It was late. It was very dark, and there was this lady who had like a shopping bag, whatever, coming the other way. Now I'm huge. Like I could probably fall on her and kill her, and so I already knew, like, oh my god, I'm probably terrifying right now, because like I've got the hoodie up and I'm lumbering, like, and I was just like, I'm just gonna walk by her, and she clearly stood as far away as possible and tried to like avoid my area, and I'm like, I'm not gonna hit you, it's fine. And then we move on. It's like, yeah, there you go. And the funny part of this story was I was wearing a Danger Mouse t-shirt, and so I was just, it's like a amusing image. But the thing is, if
Danger Mouse.
If someone
It's an old ass cartoon.
yeah, if someone
okay.
if someone said like, isn't that an injustice, Mola, that she would have prejudged? And I'm like, no. Like, look at me. I could fucking. There's a very reasonable chance that everything would point to danger of the situation she was in. Best I can do is make her feel like I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to put my hands up and stay against the wall. I'm just going to walk by her and just not look anywhere.
It's not personal.
Yeah, it's fine. And if if she was like, he didn't kill me, I was wrong. I just feel like it's okay. It's probably worthwhile.
And now the next big, horrible, terrible person that she sees, she's going to get too close to, and she's going to get robbed and stabbed.
Yeah, and so if someone said like we got it
for not enforcing that stereotype.
Exactly, I needed to get that fear entrenched. But like, yeah, so like I would just be, if someone said like you want to change that, right? I'd be like, probably not. Actually, it's probably a good thing that she sees that as a potential danger, and that's fine with me. Long man scary.
Her blood is on your hands.
Well,
yes, wash off
the blood. Maybe the danger mouse. Maybe she doesn't know the context of it. And she's like, danger mouse. Oh no.
Did it say the words danger mouse on it, or was it just a picture of danger mouse?
It's perverted her expectations. That's true.